Hello and welcome to Red Paddle Co. My name is John Hibbard. I am the CEO and co-founder here at Red, and I thought I would just take a few minutes of your time to run through safety out on the water, which ultimately comes ahead of everything, comes ahead of technique, comes even ahead of what product to choose. Safety for us is our number one concern. So hopefully you're going to learn something, and hopefully I can share some of our experiences of the last 12 years of being involved in paddleboards, and actually our wider experience of over 35 years of being involved in water sports. Now, I think the most important thing when it comes to paddleboarding is one single piece of equipment, and that is a leash. This is your number one safety piece of equipment. Ahead of everything else, if you're not wearing a leash, then you're going to potentially be in a lot of trouble. There are some important factors around what type of leash to wear and when to wear it, which I'll explain in a second, but ultimately the leash is your best life-saving piece of equipment. Your board is huge. Your board is a huge piece of floating life-saving equipment in its own right. So actually the best thing to do is to be attached to it. Now there are different types of leashes, but on the whole they work in the same way. They have a Velcro attachment at the back of the end of the leash. This attaches to the D-ring on the back of the board, normally towards the valve if it's an inflatable board, or just at the tail if it's a rigid hard board. That goes on there with Velcro, or sometimes you have a leash string, either works. And at the other end you have a cuff, and this cuff generally is designed to go around your ankle. You can get some different types of leashes. You get straight ones and you get coiled ones. This one is obviously a coiled one, it's like a telephone wire. A straight one is literally the same type of material but stretched out. The advantage of a coiled leash is that it sits on the deck of your board and doesn't pick up any leaves or seaweed as you're paddling. So generally preferred option for flat water paddling. I wouldn't recommend it for surfing. For surfing, a straight leash, or as we call a surf leash, is way better. So most of the time, paddling in open water, non-tidal, non-fast flowing rivers, put your leash on your ankle and then attach it to the back of the board. Okay. If you are in fast moving water, tidal waters, estuaries where there's lots of moored boats and obstructions, I would highly recommend you look at attaching this to some form of waist belt, or getting yourself a waist belt leash, which has a quick release system on it. Some leashes will have a quick release pin on them, and these can be used to jettison the leash if you have it around your waist. But if you get a waistband leash, it clips together very much like a kayaking throw line or tow line that would be attached to you. If you get into trouble, you can pull that ripcord literally and the leash is jettisoned and you're away from the board. The reason why you'd want that, and the reason why you'd want it on your waist as opposed to on your ankle in a fast moving water situation, is if you were to fall off your board and your board was to go one way down the side of a moored boat on a mooring, and you would go down the other side, or you would be drifting down a river separate from your board and your board gets caught up on an overhanging tree or a rock or some other feature in the river, there's a chance that you would get strung out away from your board. Okay, if that was to happen and this was on your ankle, you can't actually physically bend in the water because the water forcing you back is so strong. You can't bend to undo your leash, but you can always reach your waist with your arms, okay? And a nice quick release on your waist. So just to recap on leashes, put it on the tail of your board, wear it around your ankle if you're in open, non-fast flowing tidal waters. So if you're paddling across the river or you're paddling across a lake and there's pretty much no chance of you having any sort of detachment from your board where your board can get caught up away from you, put it on your ankle. If you're paddling in the river, fast flowing water, please put it on a quick release waist belt or get a Pacific quick release waist leash. Okay, so that for me is the most important things. If you don't have a leash, don't go paddleboarding, basically, is the general idea. Okay, so that's your number one primary piece of life-saving equipment, really. Second is some form of personal flotation device. You might hear these being called PFDs, personal flotation device. And they come in many shapes and sizes, and I'm going to run you through a couple of different options and the pluses and minuses of both. Probably the one you're most likely to know is something called a life jacket. And actually a life jacket is not ideal for paddleboarding. A life jacket is a foam jacket that you put on with a big collar, big foam collar that goes around your head. These are very bulky, and although they have the advantage of keeping your head upright if you were ever to become unconscious, they're particularly difficult to paddleboard in. They cut down your spatial awareness, your vision is cut down, and they chafe and they're very uncomfortable. So what tends to happen is you wear one, you'll get frustrated, you'll take it off, put it on the front of the board, and then it's like a chocolate teapot. It's not going to help you in any way. So a better PFD, aside from a full life jacket, is what we call a buoyancy aid. And this is a buoyancy aid here. So very similar to a life jacket, except it doesn't have that big foam collar. Generally you have a zip up the front, some clips or straps to adjust the fit, so they can fit various sizes of people. And most importantly, they should be rated as a 50 Newton buoyancy rating. Okay, you can get lots of different types of flotation coats, they're called, float coats or impact jackets, that are designed to protect your ribs if you're wakeboarding or water skiing, but they're generally not high enough flotation to be reliable buoyancy. So try and ignore those and avoid those and look for a 50 Newton, 50N buoyancy aid rating, okay, and that has to be officially tested and officially stamped on the buoyancy aid. These are a fantastic piece of kit if you're a weak swimmer, or if you are not a strong swimmer or a non-swimmer, okay, but you still want to go out on a paddleboard, because these will give you the confidence that you need to get out on the water and go paddleboarding. There are some downsides in the buoyancy aid as far as I'm concerned, and that is that, again, you can get quite hot, so there's a temptation to take it off. Obviously, if you're not wearing it, it's not going to help you. The other issue is when you're swimming back up to the side of the board, you've got a few inches of foam there to get in the way to get yourself climb back onto the edge of the board. So it does make it a little bit tricky. But that shouldn't be ignored. If you're a weak swimmer or a non-swimmer, you shouldn't ignore a buoyancy aid. It's still a very good piece of safety equipment to wear. If you're a confident swimmer and you're confident being out on the water, a really good second option for a PFD or personal flotation device is a waist belt or waist pack PFD. Something like this. So this is an air belt PFD. It goes around your waist, it clips around your waist. I'll just do that for you now. It clips on, whoops, if you do it properly. Clips on nice and tight onto your waist, and it's there if you need it. But you can forget about it if you don't. You can spin it round and wear it a bit like a bum bag at the back if you want to. But ultimately, when it's worn like this and you fall in, you become separated, maybe your leash breaks, or heaven forbid you've forgotten to take a leash, you can rip this out, stick it over your head and pull the ripcord. Just like here on our demonstration mannequin. You see it's being pulled out of the waist belt, pulled over the paddler's head, and then you've got two ways of inflating. Either you pull this cord and it inflates, and this is a gas canister, or you can use the mouthpiece to inflate it or to top it up with air, very much like a airline life jacket when you get on a plane. The benefits of these is that you don't get hot wearing it because it's around your waist, and so it's not keeping you hot, and there's no kind of chance you're going to think, I don't want it, didn't take it off. You can forget about it. The air belt PFD has a water resistant pocket, so you can stick your money, your credit cards in there as well when you're paddling, and it just basically can be forgotten about until you need it. Okay, and the gas canister is easy to replace if you ever do use it and expel all the air from the canister. So that's the waist belt or air belt PFD, which is highly recommended for anyone who is confident in the water and can already swim. Okay, so that's, for my opinion, your initial go-to safety products. A leash, almost essential, in fact is essential, you should always wear a leash. And a PFD, a personal flotation device. Ignore a life jacket, go for either a foam 50 Newton buoyancy aid or the air belt. The only time you'd use a life jacket, in my opinion, is if with very young, small children who can't swim, it helps them stay stable in the water if they fall in. In that case, it's okay to have that foam collar because you're looking for ultimate safety for someone who is either very new to the water or can't swim or is a weak swimmer. If you're sitting on a board with a child, one piece of information I'd love to share with the world is that please always put them in front of you. You can see them, you can keep control of them, and if you were to fall off, generally on a paddleboard you either fall to the back to the left, to the back to the right, or completely backwards and you walk off the back of the board. I see so many pictures of so-called brands promoting paddleboarding with children with the children sat behind them on a board, maybe one in front, one behind. Please never put a child behind you on a paddleboard because, as I say, you'll tend to walk backwards off a board and you'll land on top of the child, which is just not worth thinking about. So please, if you're paddling with children, put them on the front of the board. Okay, the last bits of safety kit I think is very worth mentioning. Take something with you like a dry bag. Okay, there's lots of different versions of the market. Even a small 10-litre dry bag like this is big enough to fit in a bottle of water, a mobile phone, in a water-resistant case as a backup, and any sort of snacks or food you want. Because actually going paddleboarding and to be safe, it's not necessarily all about keeping warm, sometimes it's about keeping cool. So hydration is important, sun cream to protect you from the sun, a hat maybe if it gets hot. Take that equipment with you. We all love paddleboarding when it's warm and sunny, and it's quite easy to get caught out. So pack some safety gear, some hydration and some sun protection in a bag like this. You're going to stay safe for longer. I mentioned a mobile phone. I think that's extremely important to take with you if you can. Every Red Paddleco board that we sell, we provide a free water-resistant phone case. You can put pretty much any smartphone going in there. It's all usable through the case. You don't have to take it out. And although it should only never be relied on, it only should be a secondary form of communication, it's a great way of raising the alarm if you need to. And if you're going to put it in a dry pack, make sure it's the last thing you put in. So it's the first thing that you can get out, okay? Don't bury it down at the bottom. And talking about smartphones or phones, there's some fantastic apps available on the market to help you notify people if you're in trouble. The RYA, the Royal Yachting Association, do a safety app. There's also a paddleboarding app called Paddle Logger. And if you subscribe to that app, you get the option to add in your safety contact details. You can alert them when you're going paddleboarding. You can also alert them if you get in trouble, and they can track your progress. So they know where you are and they can raise an alarm if they need to. So Paddle Logger or the REA safety app is a good one. There are others out there as well. Now, important point about safety and phones and communication is actually to tell somebody where you're going. It seems a very simple instruction, but actually tell someone where you're going and tell someone when you're going to be back. And also, importantly, as a third point, tell them what to do when you don't return. They need to know. So generally it is phone the Coast Guard and they can alert the emergency services. Okay. If for any reason, and there's plenty of reasons why this might happen, but if for any reason you're going to be late, you're having too good a time, you want to stay on the water longer, or you're going to hang out on the beach, have a barbecue, or go to the pub afterwards, then please just give the person that you've alerted as your safety contact a call to tell them, don't worry, I'm back on dry land, or I'm continuing on my paddleboard, I will be back at this time. Because if you don't tell them, and that time passes that you were supposed to be returning, they're going to start raising an alarm, ultimately a false alarm. Okay, so tell someone where you're going, what time you're going to be back, what to do when you don't return, and if you aren't going to return on time, please do let them know. Okay, that's pretty much a quick overview of safety as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully it's useful to you. Hopefully it's something that you can use and pass on to other people out and about on the water, because we all owe it to each other to keep each other safe. So if you see someone without a leash, let's pass that message on. Let's get them to buy leashes. Quite a lot of the cheaper product that's direct sold through eBay and Amazon doesn't include a leash, or if they're buying them from market stores, they don't necessarily contain a leash. So please educate people on your way. We've all got a kind of pass it forward responsibility here to try and get this safety message out. Leashes, personal flotation device, and some form of other piece of safety kit: water, hydration, sun cream, hat, that sort of stuff. Hope that's been useful. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you soon.